So good afternoon, everyone. Magandang hapon sa lahat. Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, and everyone here who are not in the Philippines. Thank you for coming, and we are so happy to have you in the Zoom webinar, Rising Gardens and Ecological Solid Waste Management Solutions. I am Abby Victoria, and I'm from Ateneo de Manila University. I hope that you can see my video. Oh, uh, anyway, this webinar is presented to you by the Ateneo Office for Social Concern and Involvement, the Ateneo Institute of Sustainability, and Bokashi Pinoy. So thank you again for coming to our webinar, and we hope that in an hour and a half, you'll get to learn more about solid waste management solutions, get to know a lot of people who can assist you in your journey towards being a more environment-friendly neighborhood, and we hope that you also get to find friends here in the chat room. So let us start with the house rules. So let me read it. So we invite everyone to join in the conversations using the chat, and please be mindful of yourself and be cautious towards the others. You may utilize the chat box to participate in the discussion. For any questions and clarifications will be entertained during the open forum. So kindly reserve them, but you may also type them out so that we can review them while the speakers are speaking. This webinar will be recorded and is currently being broadcasted via YouTube. So hello everyone on YouTube. I hope that you are okay and safe. So we are so happy to have you. Thank you. So everyone is typing on the chat room. So here in the Zoom, we have people from the Office for Social Concern and Involvement, from Bokashi Pinoy, and they will be entertaining your questions on the chat. While on YouTube, we also have a team from OSCI and from Bokashi Pinoy. So you can always ask questions and we'll be happy to answer your questions. Next slide. So let's start the event with an opening prayer. So let us put ourselves in the presence of God. In the name of the Father, and of the Son,
You were meant to be free, as wild as the sea, just like an eagle soaring high, nesting on trees that touch the sky. You have a right to this place, like all human race. You are no less than a child of the Maker. You're an earth keeper of the land of your birth. You were created to be a creator. You're the life bearer of Mother Earth. for to be named a name giver. You're a defender of the nameless and weak. You were so pleased to become a peacemaker, to make or unmake. Hangs on you, and for the sake of the futures of our daughters and sons, in the name of all creatures, give survival a chance. You are no less than a child of the Maker. You're an earth giver of the land of your birth. You are the will, you're the lost, you're the seeker, the story to tell hangs on you. You're a defender of the nameless and weak. You are so pleased to become a peacemaker, to make or unmake, to do or undo. Hangs on you.
Good afternoon, everyone. So, welcome again to our webinar, Rising Gardens and Ecological Solid Waste Management. So, let's welcome Ms. Ophalie Alzona to give us, Alzona Pornella to give us the opening remarks.
Thank you, Floy. Mukhang naputol si Abby Vic, no? Salamat sa pagsalo. Sige, so good afternoon, everyone. Ms. Lani Francisco, Ms. Abby Favis, colleagues and students from the Ateneo de Manila University, beloved guests, good afternoon. It is my great pleasure to welcome you all to this webinar, Rising Gardens and Ecological Solid Waste Management Solutions. Not only does this webinar serve as a concrete expression of our commitment to sustainable development, but it also reaffirms our commitment to make the world a better place by continuing to raise awareness and providing concrete actions that each of us can do to address our long-time problem on solid wastes. This talk is the fruit of the hard work of our advocacy committee in OSCI. Let me just mention their names: Abby Vic, Floy, Pau, Hennessy, Louis, Alex, and Anjo. Our colleagues from the Ateneo Institute of Sustainability, especially Dr. Achut Kuyagkeng and Ms. Abby Favis, and our friends from Bokashi Pinoy, Ms. Lani Francisco, Mr. Roy Emmanuel Pareja, Ms. Karen Pasqua, Ms. Ninfa Castor, Ms. Janina Custodio, and Ms. Belle Rodrigo. Thanks too to our colleagues from the Loyola School's campus events team, headed by Chris Castillo, for making the live streaming of this event possible. As a way of introduction, our office, OSCI, or the Office for Social Concern and Involvement, is responsible for the social formation of undergraduate students in the Ateneo. We seek to deepen the social awareness and intensify the passion for social involvement, primarily among Loyola School students, but certainly not limited to them, in order to create a positive impact in our society. Even in a pandemic, and as we transition to an online setup, we continue to find ways to reach our goals and advocate for social issues and sectors in our society through partnerships with institutions and individuals whom we look up to and share our values with. Although it is unfortunate that we're meeting at this time of a pandemic, we hope that this online platform reaches more people and raises greater awareness and inspires us to save our Earth even in our own little way. We are almost 200 in the Zoom room right now, and I think over a little over 40 in YouTube. But we have also received around 500 inquiries slash registrants to this event. And even when we closed the registration, we continued to receive inquiries about today's webinar. No? So nakakataba talaga ng puso na marami ang interesadong mas maging malay at bukas kung papaano tayo pwedeng kumilos bilang individual o kaya naman ay bilang isang pamilya o isang household. And so today, we are blessed to be in the presence of two very distinguished individuals who are exemplars and advocates of the environment. We look up to their energy, creativity, and passion as we listen to their sharing. We begin by listening to Ms. Abby Favis talk about solid waste management in our country, and then we'll listen to Ms. Lani Francisco of Bokashi Pinoy talk about the role of rising gardens in addressing the threats to our environment. It is my fervent hope that this afternoon serves as only the beginning of continuing dialogues and learning how we can make a difference for our Earth. Thank you, and again, good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you so much, Ufali, for your wonderful opening, and thank you for welcoming everyone. I know na dami ang nagtulungan to make this event happen, and we are so happy that we have right now 198, umaabot na ng 200 participants here in this webinar. So thank you very much. And I see there are a lot of students, teachers, and friends from abroad. So thank you very much for being here. So now, may we introduce our special speaker for today. Our first speaker is Ms. Abigail Marie T. Favis. She is the Program Manager for Campus Sustainability. So here she will present to us her thoughts on the current situation of solid waste management and solid waste situation here in the country. So thank you for being here, Ms. Abby.
Thank you, Abby. Hello, everyone. I'm also Abby. Let me just share my screen. I'm Abby Favis from the Ateneo Institute of Sustainability. And in the next few minutes, sorry, what happened? Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen now, ma'am.
Okay. So in the next few minutes, I aim to give us all a backgrounder about our solid waste management issues, focusing particularly on biodegradable waste and of course the role of households and individuals in contributing to solutions. So we know that waste is everywhere. We're surrounded by it. There's even in outer space, there's space debris, there's space junk, so it exists. So wherever man goes, it's a byproduct of our activities, so waste will follow. And we're used to seeing photos of trash in even the most remote beaches on Earth, but this was also a big surprise to me last week. One of the scientists from the UP Marine Science Institute, Deo Onda, descended the Emden Trench, which is the third deepest part of the Earth. And to his dismay, unfortunately, he saw trash as well. So he saw plastic bags, he saw discarded clothing, some discarded toys as well. And this is 34,000 feet below sea level. So it's everywhere and it's a perennial problem. Closer to home, and I beg indulgence from our guests in other regions of the country. Closer to home, particularly in Metro Manila, this is the solid waste management situation. So if you live in Metro Manila, take a moment to check where your city is and how much municipal solid waste is generated on the average per day. So these numbers reflect daily municipal solid waste generation in tons. So presented like this, parang the numbers they look low, 3,000 for Quezon City. What does that really mean? It's hard to visualize or understand or emphasize what these numbers really mean if we can't visualize a ton. So I started looking at what other materials weigh a ton, and maybe we can connect to that better. What else weighs a ton? Baby humpback whale weighs a ton. An old school Volkswagen Beetle weighs about a ton. 73 gold bullions or gold bars weigh about a ton. So compare that to the numbers reflected per city in Metro Manila. So it might seem like a lot, no? 3,000 baby humpback whales going through the city every day because that's daily waste generation. But if we push our critical thinking further, maybe we shouldn't be looking at mass, or maybe we shouldn't be looking at weight, because things may weigh the same, but they don't occupy the same amount of space. So we also have to consider waste volume, not just the mass or not just the tonnage of waste that we generate. So I asked my friend for permission to share this photo. This was taken by Trinket. I think she's in the audience. Thank you, Trinket. And this is a photo that she took while they were monitoring the migratory bird population along the mudflats in Manila Bay. And if you look at this part of the photo, I don't know if you can see my cursor. Parang we're looking at, across the water, we're looking at maybe a pile of sand or maybe a community that has all white roofs. But if you zoom in, this is what you will see. It's actually the piles or the mounds of trash in the Tanza Navotas landfill, the sanitary landfill there. And one of the reasons why solid waste is an always an occurring problem is our mindset about it is it's out of sight, out of mind. When we throw things away, we forget about them. We don't see or we don't think about the problems that occur downstream. So that's something that we also have to change. But aside from the mass or the volume of solid waste that's being generated in our country, we also have to look at where the solid waste is coming from. So according to the National Solid Waste Management Commission, these are the sources of municipal solid waste in the Philippines. And if you look at this graph, you'll see that more than half of it comes from residential areas. That's you, that's me. And sometimes I always tell my students, sometimes we like to blame businesses, we like to blame industry for the waste problem. But everybody who comes from the commercial sector, the institutional sector, the industrial sector, all of them come home at the end of the day. So the residential group or the residential sector is a big contributor. And you will hear this phrase a lot when dealing with sustainability issues: common but differentiated responsibilities. I think that's not just applicable to sustainable development, but also to any other environmental or social problem that we're facing now. And what this really means is that wherever you are, whatever sector you're a part of, your approaches, the problem is the same, but the approaches have to be customized. It has to be differentiated based on your context. And aside from the sources of municipal solid waste in the Philippines, we also have to look at what this waste is composed of. And according to the Solid Waste Management Commission, again, more than half or over half of the solid waste stream is composed of biodegradable waste. And then maybe over a quarter is recyclable, and only 20% is residual and special waste combined. So this is emphasizes a very strong case for waste diversion, because if we landfill this entire pie or all of this waste, then we're going to be in a whole lot of trouble. But if you look at the source of municipal solid waste as well as the composition of municipal solid waste, I hope you also see that there is a very strong case as well for the responsibilities of households to address biodegradable waste at our level. We don't Maybe we don't need to wait for other people to help solve the problem, but maybe there are things that we can do ourselves at the household level. And allow me to just share with you, as an environmental scientist, this is one of the reasons also why biodegradable waste diversion is very important, because biodegradable wastes, they don't decompose readily in landfills. They will eventually, but for organic waste to decompose, they need exposure to oxygen and also to sunlight to decompose into its component carbon and nutrient components. But in the absence of oxygen, like in landfills where they are compacted, they are buried, they will still degrade if there is anaerobic biodegraders or anaerobic bacteria present, unfortunately, the byproduct of that reaction will be methane. And we all know methane is a flammable gas. It's also a greenhouse gas. So it's not just the biodegradable waste that takes up space in the landfill. It's also the environmental impacts down the line. So solid waste is a complex issue. So we have to all work together to find solutions for it. And landfilling is a very linear approach or a very linear way of thinking. We buy, we consume, we use, and then we throw it in the landfill. When waste goes to the landfill, there's no other chance for it to get reintegrated back into either the nutrient cycle for biodegradables or the material cycles for recyclable waste. So there must be a better approach to this, and that is composting. So composting is the nutrient cycle at work. You have your organic material, and this can be composed of yard waste. This can be composed of kitchen waste, your food waste, even wet paper. And there are many ways that you can practice composting at home. This photo that you're seeing now is the vermicomposting facility at the Loyola schools in our Loyola Heights campus. And it might we're using worms to help decompose our organic material, mostly yard waste and some food waste from the cafeteria. But even if you don't have this amount of space, or even if you don't want to work with worms, there are other options also that you can do composting at home. And the reason why this is a more sustainable approach is because we're really looking at or mimicking the natural cycles that exist in nature. So we're turning organic material into soil conditioner. And if you apply that, if you grow plants, if you have a vegetable garden at home, then you're propagating the cycle. And that's one of the best ways to approach it. But even if you don't have a lot of space wherever you are, like for example, I live in a condominium, so I don't have space for a big composting facility like this, there are a lot of options. That's why today's activity is so exciting for me. And I let the Bokashi Pinoy team tell you more about how you can do bucket composting later on. So composting is one of the solutions. But before I turn you over to the Bokashi Pinoy team, I hope you will allow me to also show that there are more fundamental changes that need to happen on our part. So it's not just about looking at different technologies that we can apply to treat our waste, but it's also about shifting our mindsets and our paradigms and how we view waste. So I'm sure most of you or all of you are familiar with the solid waste management hierarchy from most preferred to least preferred. But if we want more effective solutions, there's another step that must go before that. And that is we have to redesign and rethink our approaches to waste and consumption. And one of the things that we need to do is really need to change our paradigm about waste. We need to see waste as a resource. And this is one of the problems why I think solid waste is really a perennial problem. If we consider waste as a resource, we will be challenged to think of who else would be able to use it, how else can it still be valuable, and where it can go instead of just in the trash bin or in the landfill. Because if you always think of waste, as basura, then your only option or your impulse would be to just throw it away or discard it. And that propagates linear thinking. And that's what we want to break. So instead of linear thinking, we really have to think in cycles because that's how nature works. And nature knows best. We know that. So we have to think in cycles, stop thinking linearly, and we have to look at how can our activities, even in our households, be linear and be in the rhythm of how nature works and how things happen in the natural world. Of course, we know this, we have to practice more mindful consumption. And it's not just about buying less, it's also about taking better care of what we already have now, taking better care of our things, repairing the art of repair. It's a lost art, but I hope that's something that we can all pass on to our children, to our families. And it's a struggle. It's a difficult challenge, especially if because we're so used to a culture of convenience, a culture of instant gratification. Sometimes applying sustainable solutions or applying sustainable changes in our lifestyles can be very daunting. And that's okay. That's okay. But the point is we have to keep trying. And one of the things that will help is if we join support groups or supportive communities. And there are so many very welcoming, very supportive communities on social media. So I hope you all try to see where the community that you will fit best in, because that's where you'll get your tips, your tricks, the hacks, and also encouragement to inspire you to continue. And last but not least, I hope this is something we also consider. We have to start them young. So involve your children in your solid waste management activities at home. Help them to be creative, help them to take care of their things, because the earlier we start forming environmentally responsible behaviors, the stronger these will be as they grow up and as they develop. So before I turn you over to Miss Lani and the Bokashi Pinoy team, I just want to thank again OSCI for organizing this event, and the Bokashi Pinoy team for working with us. I'm sure everybody will be very inspired by your experience and your example. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Miss Abby. Yan, katokayo pala kita. Ayan. So, ang talagang tumatak sa akin na we have common but differentiated responsibilities. And the inverted triangle is really an eye-opening information, and inspires me to, as an educator, to rethink and redesign our behavior, our actions at home, and also in our respective communities. There's a question here, no, Miss B. I think it's a little more technical, but I hope that you will be able to answer it. Sabi down from Maria Estela Barcibal, is there something we can add to current landfills to hasten the composting process of current garbage that are already there?
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am, for that very interesting question. Well, actually, a more proactive solution would be to make sure that we can divert as much as we can away from the landfills. I think landfills naman are still very important, because at this point in time, we don't have all the technologies to treat all of the materials that are found in our solid waste stream. But the best solution talaga is to, at the start, make sure that whatever enters the landfill are just residual wastes. And these are wastes that cannot be recycled or wastes that cannot be composted. So for maybe, I'm not sure if there are solutions for, let's say, if there's an open dump, kasi it's illegal. It's illegal naman talaga to have open dump or uncontrolled landfills. But we have to be more proactive with our solutions, and see how we can more efficiently use the landfill space. I hope that answered the question.
Yes, thank you so much, Miss Abby. And thank you for the question, Miss Maria Estela Barcibal. So, Miss Abby, on our part naman, so OSCI, so if ever that we want more,
Ba't to laging
more,
ganyan? Ay, sorry.
we want more time or more opportunities to work with your office or your organization, where is the best place or platform that we can reach your office so that we can explore more about this issue?
Sure. You can reach out to us on Facebook. We have a Facebook page, the Ateneo Institute of Sustainability. So you just search for us there. You can also look for our contact details on our website. You can just Google Ateneo Institute of Sustainability. I think we're the number one. We're the first search result that will appear. I can also send it through the chat. I can post it in the chat.
Yes, thank you, Miss Abby.
Thank you very much.
Yes. All right. So Miss Abby will type the link in or the name of their Facebook page here in the chat, so that if anyone is interested to know more about this advocacy, and of course, if you want to be more involved in this kind of research work or designing work, Miss Abby and her team will be happy to assist and to work with you. So thank you again, Miss Abby. Now, this is this is the next part that we have all been waiting for. Kasi if we have differentiated responsibilities and more than half, diba, or the residual waste are come from the household, but what can we do as um, homebodies, students, mothers, parents, diba, tito and tita, can do to help reduce waste. And we are so happy to have a speaker that is part of this um, very popular na, no? They're being so popular na and also becoming more involved in this kind of work. They're Bukashi Pinoy, and we're so fortunate that we have the founder herself to be part of this event and present to us their organization and the work that they do in towards reducing solid waste management. So thank you, and we would like to present Ms. Lani Francisco.
Thank you, Miss Abby. And thank you then for the good introduction on solid waste management. It makes it easier. So good afternoon, fellow Earth Keepers. So ready na ba kayo to find out how you can make deliberate action, no, in addressing our solid waste management issue in the Philippines and probably even globally, because I heard we have some people abroad as well who's listening today. So before I begin, I think I just would like to connect what we are going to discuss in the next 45 minutes. Maybe you're wondering, how does Rising Garden link into ecological solid waste management? Well, it all starts with a vision of a garden that is just within our walking distance, and also established process. So with that, I would like to introduce to you the 5 stages of the Bokashi Pinoy method, which we have developed for the last 3 years and which have been tested with 500 households who have attended our programs since the beginning of the pandemic in March 15, 2020. So with this, we're going to show you the Bokashi Pinoy setup of one of our advocates and community leader who's based in a condominium actually.
Nandito ang aking balde. So, sa slide ko lang yan. So, kailangan ko mag-collect ng leach sheet. And kapag naman kailangan ng mag-transfer ng napunong tubs, ilalagay ko lang siya sa floor. Tapos buksan. At pag natapos na po ang stage 2, sa stage 3, lalabas ko lang po yung bucket. Tapos, ita-transfer ko yung content dito sa 50 liter na black bin. Yung compost na makukuha ko is gagamitin ko for my plants. Pag naman masyadong marami, nakapuno na ulit ng balde, i-donate ko na po sa Bokashi Pinoy.
So guys, now that you have seen that one of our advocates was able to do it in such a small space, that's just a condominium balcony po. So I think it's only about 3 or 4 square meters space, and she was able to manage her food waste and turn it into compost and use it for her own garden. So if you want to learn how to manage your food waste, hindi lang po yung food waste, since one of our speakers also mentioned about the other solid waste that have been an issue, a systemic issue in the Philippines, we would like to introduce to you or invite you to the 30-day Garbage to Garden Challenge, which was actually empowered by Coca-Cola Foundation, in the sense that they offered us a grant in order for us to bring this to communities who meet certain criteria, being that they are organized and they have a certified Bokashi Pinoy practitioner within the neighborhood, and that the local authorities, either the HOA president or the barangay captains or the property managers, are also involved. So my name is Lani Francisco. I think they have mentioned that. I am a learner, a mentor, a teacher, a mother, and a daughter. But most of all, I am your fellow Earth Keeper. So as you know, the Earth is our common ground. I think one of the reasons why we are here today is because we wanted to build a community of Earth Keepers. And the only way that we could do that, guys, is for us to realize that we only have one home. We only have one community, and that the Earth is what we all have in common. So with that, I would like to to ask a question back, and maybe you can answer this question later on. If we are a community, why then we are not connected to each other? I think it's because of the pandemic. But wait, so maybe how can we start a community at this point when the pandemic seems to be isolating us from each other? Well, if we wait for the government to act on our behalf, it might just be too late. Um, and it's not about blaming. It's really about the situation today, the COVID situation. If we act as individuals, it might just not be enough or significant enough to be recognized or to make an impact. But if we actually connect together, we might be able to do it in a much more impactful way. So the challenge for today, and I hope in the next 45 minutes, you will also be encouraged to get organized with your household or with your neighbors in order for us to make deliberate actions on how to save or keep our planet Earth for the future generation. So how does one save the Earth? Maybe you're asking yourself, so paano ba talaga, Lani? How are we going to save the Earth? Well, saving the Earth actually starts with you. You know, the change that you wanted to become actually starts with your own mindset and with your own behaviors. And then when you lead by example, people become more inspired and motivated to do things that normally people would not do when nobody is watching. So yeah, we wanted to start with households. And I think when we talk about starting with household, we also begin to think about, okay, now, let's say I have started this in my household. How can I begin to make my neighbors involved? So I think the best way to do that is to talk about what we call climate justice. All right. So climate justice by definition is quite wordy. So we will begin with a short video na lang muna siguro. Okay, so the most common definition of climate justice is this. I'm going to read it out so that you will understand it na. It's really very wordy and hard to understand. The fair and equitable treatment of people of all races, ethnicity, and income with regards to the development and implementation and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, programs, and policies. So that's really quite a mouthful. So let's begin by just watching a video to make it simple and apply to the context that we're talking about today.
Where we live in society plays a huge role in the environmental benefits and risks that we're exposed to. And I'm going to actually draw in different parts of society by using this line, which represents a spectrum of society. On the right-hand side, I'm going to draw part of society that experiences higher poverty and also incorporates the often disadvantaged racial minority groups. On the left-hand side, I'm going to draw a much wealthier part of society. One of the things that we know is that living areas that experience high poverty and have a lot of racial minorities often have few environmental benefits compared to the wealthier part of society. What do I mean by environmental benefits? I mean green spaces, parks, recreational areas. What does that look like? Well, let me draw it for you. Using this triangle, this is supposed to represent environmental benefits. And one of the things we can see is that the wealthier part of society has much higher benefits than the high poverty and racial minority part of society. And as I mentioned, those benefits include things like parks, bike paths, and other green spaces. So one part of society seems to be getting a lot of benefit, while another part of society seems to not be getting as much benefit. But what the high poverty and racial minority part of society does get, it does get something. And what it does get, it gets a lot of environmental burden. So what does that look like? And this line is actually supposed to represent increasing burden. So compared to the high income part of society, the high poverty and racial minorities get increasing burden. And this includes things like waste facilities, manufacturing and factories, energy production, and transportation facilities, such as airports. And one of the things we have to consider is that these disadvantaged populations, they are really at risk because they're disadvantaged in many ways. They often have few alternatives in terms of where they work and where they live. They may have little awareness of the risks they may face being exposed to various environmental risks or pollutants or chemicals. They may also have other pressing issues, meaning that environmental issues are low on their agenda. And let us contrast that to the wealthier population. The wealthier population may very well be more politically powerful. They can also be economically powerful, literally being able to demand that the environmental beneficial facilities are placed close to them and the burdensome facilities are placed far away, and being able to control things like laws and regulations to benefit them more so than the other communities. And they can also be better represented in environmental groups or lobbying groups. Now, this is all of significance when we consider that the high poverty groups and racial minorities may have health problems such as asthma or obesity, because we know conditions like asthma have got strong correlations to environmental issues such as pollutants, particles, ozone.
All right, guys. So that's a bit long, no? So let's try to put it into correlation, no, on our context today. I'm actually trying to share a whiteboard. How do I do that? Medyo iba yung itsura niya dito. So anyway, maybe guys, ganito na lang. I'm not going to do a whiteboard session anymore. Maybe just a question for the people who's listening to us via Zoom and even via YouTube. When we talk about landfills, I think our first speaker earlier, she mentioned about Tansa Cavite, no, one of our landfills. But can you name another 2 landfills in Metro Manila? Pwedeng closed, you can name a landfill that's already closed or even a landfill that's still very much active. Just name 2 or 3.
Rizal, Payatas.
Okay, one more.
One in Northern Caloocan.
Ayun, I'm seeing it on the chat. So as you can notice, guys, most of these landfills are in the northern part of Metro Manila. Now, let's put it in the other, another extreme. Where can you find green spaces, high quality green spaces, vegetation, parks, malls with a lot of vegetation? Where do you yon? I see it. BGC, Parks and Wildlife.
Makati.
QC, La Mesa Eco Park, Tanay. QC.
Silinvest, Alabang.
Okay. But I think most of us would agree that most of it is in the south. But we are not here actually, guys, to point fingers on who's at fault or who is not. But we are just bringing home the point that climate justice is really about sharing the burden and the benefits of green spaces. Benefits of green spaces and the burdens of environmental hazards of things such as landfills and dam site. And of course, the other extreme is the complete opposite of that. If the benefits and the burdens are not shared equitably between genders and social economic status, then there's climate injustice. So what then? So how does it impact all of us? I think for most of us today, I think in one way or another, the fact that we can actually join Zoom or even watch from YouTube, we are actually in a position of power economically and even politically to make changes in our lives, to even influence changes. But there are also those people who are considered underserved. So what does it mean? So these underserved communities, they live in places wherein it is nearby to landfills and dam sites, and that there are also water sanitation facilities. And for some reason, it's also coupled with the lack of quality green spaces. There are no vegetation, no parks, no trees in those areas. And most of the people who live in that environment also lack the information that they need to make decisions to make their lives better, or at least live a better quality life, or even to lobby for changes. So if that's the case, what then? Kung wala naman palang threat sa ating existence, why do we then even have to take an action Well, regardless of where we are in terms of socio-economic status or geographical location, we are all affected by climate change, true or not. If we have one earth, we have one community, we have one home, then all of us will suffer, right? Next slide, please. So, what can rising gardens do for us? So in my experience in working with community gardens, now particularly the Barangay San Antonio Urban Garden in Pasig City, it helps to spread awareness, not only for the community members who live just a few miles or just a few kilometers away from it, but also with the local authorities about the environmental hazards of food waste, and that there are actually actions that they can take deliberately within the confines of that community garden, even in industrialized areas or financial districts like Ortigas Center and Makati. All of these rising gardens can still play a critical role by being a platform for experts in regenerative farming practices to exchange knowledge with the urban gardeners or even average people like us. We can also learn about bioremediation. Actually, bokashi is a form of bioremediation to solid waste. And especially is the decentralized approach to solid waste management. It means you do not have to bring your food waste to the landfills anymore. You can actually process it closer to home without the threat of pests and even the odor, the bad odor. So that's what rising gardens can play in terms of advocating for ecological solid waste management. So what is the other rationale for talking about rising gardens? Well, we have actually an engineer in the house, Engineer Roy. Could you tell us by law what is the ideal percentage of green spaces that we should have in every community?
Okay, for as per law, I'm not honestly
Mm,
currently meron dalawang lumalabas pero it's an average of 25 to 40% per community, area per community. Yun yung ano.
okay. So what it means is for every 100 square meters, there should be about 25 square meters or 30 square meters of green space. What is green space? It should be trees, ornamental plants, or even edible plants. But in Metro Manila, our green spaces is only down to 12% on the average across Metro Manila. Whereas in Manila itself, 4% na lang po ang remaining green spaces. So ano effect niyan sa ating mental health? I think now that the pandemic is really back in its full in its full force, the urban heat that's being generated by concrete, yung mga residential buildings and houses, without the trees and all of these vegetations, we are being cooked in our own sweat. Literally, it's like a microwave oven. And again, because of the pandemic, yung lack of green spaces actually is also impacting our mental and emotional health. And because if our mental and emotional health is aggravated, it follows that our physical well-being is also affected. So if all of the four factors are being affected by the lack of green space, mental, physical, emotional, and social aspects are being affected, what does it mean? So I think there's a form of social injustice. And somehow we can actually say that it's also a form of violence because ecological degradation and the lack of green spaces is considered, yun nga, parang it affects our lives eh. It even affects people's lives. So I think there's a form of social violence or criminal, even criminal injustice when it comes to the lack of these particular green spaces. But again, we are not here to point fingers, but to find out what can we do for ourselves. All of us who have the power, politically and economically, to make those changes for ourselves and even for those people who are underserved or who cannot make informed decisions like we do. Maybe they will just follow along with the herd without knowing what this is all about. But all of us who knows what to do, who already know, I think we have the duty to act. May nagsabi, there was a quote that says, the privilege to know, those who are privileged to know has the duty to act. And for Bokashi Pinoy, so even if I was actually recognized as the founder of Bukashi Pinoy. I actually have to say that this was founded by two other mentors, si Ninfa Castor and Roy Pahela, who's been with us since 2019, and all of the other people who have been supporting me in the background. Di ko na lang sila mababanggit ngayon, but they have been supporting me since 2019. My friends and those people in the farm in Nueva Ecija and here in Quezon City, they have been helping me to uh, to actually act deliberately on the problem that we have, the holistic, the systemic issue that we have on solid waste management with the holistic solution. And with the addition of Janina and Karen and Bell, we've actually offered a learning program, a 30-day challenge since the beginning of the pandemic last year to households. So as I mentioned earlier, in the next slide, you will see that we have already trained about 500 households in the best practices in solid waste management. And out of those 500 plus or so, I think almost 600 na pala, about 157 have graduated from the program, and about 100 of them, actually this April, have started going through the 30-day Garbage to Garden Challenge as a community sponsored by Coca-Cola Foundation. And then out of that 157 graduates ng 30-day Garbage to Garden Challenge namin, about 5 or 7 of them have actually acted deliberately by reaching out to their neighbors. And later on, I will show you an example of that. And I will introduce you one of those community leaders. And in fact, I think she's familiar with the organizer of this event. Okay, so just to recap now, guys, so what's the role of Rising Gardens? I think it's very important for us to start focusing on community gardens. In fact, the government have started a lot of these community gardens already. It's just that we have forgotten to interconnect the people who lives near it. For example, yung BSA Urban Garden in Pasig, nobody knows about the garden until we started hosting events in the community garden. So I think it is very important for people to get to know where those community gardens are and to know that we are all interconnected to each other through increased involvement, increased engagement with at least your neighbors and your local authorities. And with that, if we are more organized, if we organize ourselves better, we will gain the trust of their stakeholders. And I think one of the proof that we were able to gain the trust of the stakeholders without even asking for help or even asking for a grant is through this grant that was provided to us by Coca-Cola Foundation. So one of their program managers joined the 30-day Garbage to Garden Challenge and witnessed for herself how we have been acting, or how have we been acting in communities and households to um, to get people to learn the best practices in solid waste management. And with that, um, I've also increased my level of awareness on the global climate change issues that we are facing now. And I think this is the year wherein we would like to reach out to more communities to be able to share this out to a larger scale, no, to bigger communities. So, eto na naman, may tanong na naman ako para sa mga nasa ating Zoom meeting and sa YouTube. Whenever you see this signage, this karatula or this tarpaulin, bawal magtapon ng basura dito. What usually happens? Ano yung usually nyo nakikita pag may nakita kayong karatula na ganyan? Correct. May basura pa din. So why? Bakit pag bawal? Why when somebody says beware or do not, people actually keep doing it, what they're not supposed to do? I think it's because we are wired to actually act on yung action word. Pag nakita mo magtapon, you say throw, selective listening or selective reading, you will forget about the bawal. Will start actually throwing away things. But what if you change this karatula or signage into this? On this site will rise a garden. What do you think? On this site will rise a garden. All right, so let's see. I think this is the part wherein we're going to change the vision, the people's vision, so that, hold on a minute. All right. Let's change the vision a bit. Ayan.
What if this is the space wherein you can turn biodegradable waste
Wala
how
na,
to
wala na.
manage their own kitchen waste, a community to engage and socialize with each other through shared experiences, where a father can teach his son new life skills, where traditional farmers and new age farmers can have a knowledge exchange, where butterflies and other beneficial insects can roam around to pollinate our crops while maintaining a beautiful facade and a calming landscape. This is the Eco Garden experience.
All right. So back to the ano, no? Back to our audience. What if we actually make changes like that? No, we turn it into positive scripting. Okay, good question. No, I'm not. How do we protect it from stealing? But before we even think about the stealing, I think let's talk about how we can even get started. So to get started, guys, I think we should hold the vision close to our hearts and trust an established process. As I've said in the beginning, we have actually developed the 5 stages of the Bokashi Pinoy method, or the 30-day garbage to garden challenge. Since 2019, we have tested it with hundreds of households last year. And this year, with the start of another ECQ in April 1st, we have started reaching out to communities with the help of Coca-Cola Foundation. This was actually a sponsored program for these communities. They were selected based on certain criterias. And we are hoping that either they will be able to revive an existing garden that they have within their communities, or that they can establish a new one. So that's the vision that we have right now. And then maybe later on we can actually address the issue of stealing if there's actually enough for everyone. I think if at least 10 million people, 10% of us actually do it, there will be enough for everyone. Okay, next slide, please. So how do we do this? How does Bokashi Pinoy do this? So again, it's about gaining the trust of our stakeholders, and I think we've gained that through grit and passion. We didn't even we do not even have the skills to request for a grant. We don't have grant writing skills or even fundraising skills, but we managed to do that, and through that grant, we were able to start developing community leaders who happen to be certified Bokashi Pinoy practitioners as well. And we will keep on doing what we are really good at doing, which is delivering what we call experiential learning program towards changes in mindset and behavior. Experiential po means hands-on learning. So this is not just about attending one webinar and then forgetting everything that you've learned, because we're going to be um, reinforcing what you've learned on a daily basis. So for 15 minutes a day, you will receive reminders from us to keep doing what you need to do, even if nobody is looking. Next slide, please. So again, how do we create an eco-friendly community garden? The step one really is to make it sustainable. Right now, because of the pandemic, I think the most sustainable garden that you can ever have at this point is the one that you have at home. Kahit na, even if it's just in a 1 square meter space, you can get started. And once you get the hang of it, start reaching out to your neighbors, maybe give away plants, give away your harvest, some of your harvest, or even some of your compost. And then if you decide to do this at a larger scale, like with your neighbors or with your community, and I hope that this pandemic will start losing its grasp on us so that we can start reestablishing or rebuilding our communities, that you actually start realizing how this can actually create revenues and new jobs, to create new jobs, meaning maybe employ some of the informal workers. I think in the past, all of us are familiar with those people who are collecting kanin baboy, the food waste that they send out to the piggery. But right now, I think the most common or the most efficient way or effective way of doing that is through a more controlled way of collecting the food waste through bokashi, which we usually teach using the 30-day garbage to garden challenge. Next slide, please. So again, we're hoping that this pandemic will soon lose its grasp on us, and so that we could turn some of these gardens into an ecotourism destination. In fact, yun ngang BSA Urban Garden in Pasig, they have started thinking about it already. And through that, we will be able to advocate more about environmental protection, and at the same time, make deliberate action by involving the community to garden, to compost, and to realize that the closer your garden is at home, the lesser your carbon footprint. And with that, you are also upholding your rights, your own right to a safe and clean environment, and also indirectly helping those who do not have the power that we have, the economic and political power that we have to influence these changes. Next slide, please. So I mentioned this earlier, no, if you cannot garden or if you cannot establish a community garden today, it's okay. Because I think the greatest change that we can make at this point in time is to start the change with ourselves. If we can um, garden, at home with just 1 square meter space, that's already going to make a significant impact. There's 108 million Filipinos today. So it's about 10 million of those 108 million will start gardening. I think the issue about the stealing will not be an issue anymore because there will be enough for everyone. So this quote is actually from my favorite gardener or favorite environmental advocate, Bill Mollison, the father of permaculture. So the question here is, kayo po ba, are you willing to start gardening? So for those who joined the 30-day garbage to garden challenge last year and the beginning of this year, about 70% of them are using their compost to grow their own food. So the question is, what happens to the remaining 30%? So that's the reason why in the next slide, you will see that the Bokashi Pinoy advocacy work does not end around just delivering learning programs. Next slide, please. It's not just about delivering learning programs, but also about establishing composting hubs so that those people who are not inclined to become a plantito or a plantita yet, or at least not so in the next few months, they can bring their bokashi food waste to the nearest composting hub, or they can participate in what we call basura to ayuda events, wherein they can bring those bokashi food waste along with their PET bottles and used cooking oil. So it happens usually last Fridays of the month in Barangay San Antonio in Pasig. And again, we will continue what we are good at. What we are good at, yung pagtuturo po, that we continue to teach the 30-day garbage to garden challenge, and to continue developing new programs so that we can equip our participants with knowledge on how to garden properly using the compost that they make. Next slide. So now that you know that there are deliberate actions that you can make, and just being here today makes you powerful enough to make that decision, that means we also have the duty to act. So the challenge is this. Maybe after this, no, and if somebody actually invited you today, neighbor nyo who happened to be a certified Bokashi Pinoy practitioner, or if you know people from the participants, start organizing yourselves and ask yourselves, what are the things you would do or stop or start or continue doing to become more conscious about the environment? How can you influence other people to do the same? And of course, what can be done to solve a common problem? So right now, our common problem is really to how to reach out to each other because of the pandemic. We are limited to our own households. So yan muna. So if you want to remove the guesswork, if you want to do something na parang meron na instructions, day by day, the instructions will just be given to you. All you have to do is act on it. Then please join the 30-day garbage to garden challenge, either as an individual or as a group of 20 neighbors. We will be giving you instructions 1 hour per week. So you'll be attending Zoom meetings 1 hour per week. And then in between those meetings, meron po kayong, you will have a group chat wherein you can interact with each other and be reminded of the tasks that you need to do on a daily basis, so that you will develop the habit as if it is second nature, like brushing your teeth. Because I think learning how to segregate all of these food waste that you're seeing now or solid waste that you are seeing now is easy. Within 15 minutes, you will learn how to do that. But developing the habit of doing it day in and day out, even when no one is watching and even when it becomes so mundane, that's another thing. And that's what the Garbage to Garden Challenge program is going to bring to you. So how to join as an individual, here's how to join. You can scan the QR code. You need to get at least a starter kit. Of course, you need the balde and also the bokashi ipa, and sign up for the live mentoring. I think our mentors are going to post the links to the group chat right now, so that if you want to order, you can order right now. And later on, we're also going to send this to you via email, so that you can order your starter kits and also sign up for the 30-day Garbage to Garden Challenge. The better option actually is to join as a community. Why? Because if you join as a community of Garbage to Garden Challenge participants, we will also be working with your local authorities to ensure that you will have a composting hub near your homes. Usually naman meron talaga. It's just that sometimes they forgot the potential of those composting hubs. We have MRF, composting hub, or community gardens. In every community, meron yan. It's just that they have forgotten where it is. So we're going to be reviving those um, spaces so that we can use it in the best way possible by using it as a composting hub or as a gardening area where people can hopefully socialize once this pandemic is over. So how to do that? Well, you have attended this webinar na. That's the first step. Number two is to get organized. If you are invited by a certified Bokashi Pinoy practitioner, you get a better chance to get sponsored by Coca-Cola Foundation. Because if you have a neighbor who is a certified Bokashi Pinoy practitioner, and that person, that community leader is also working hand in hand with your local authority, it makes the work a lot easier for us. So ito yung sinasabi ko kanina na if we get ourselves organized, we will gain the trust of our stakeholders and our local authorities that yes, if they support us, they know that we are not just Ningas Kogon, because we have organized ourselves, we have initiated this from the grassroots level, and therefore their support will not go to waste. So yan. So if somebody actually invited you to this webinar, go back to that person and say, let's do this and get organized and start the 30-day Garbage to Garden Challenge. So the deadline for application to this program is April 24, and the next challenge will start on May 5. Okay, with that, I think, is it time for Q&A? Any question po ba na hindi ko nasagot? Na hindi pala nasagot ng mga mentors natin on the chat box? Thank you rin po. So we also would like to recognize those who are in YouTube right now, those who were not able to make it to Zoom. So I think Mentor Janina is also responding to your questions as we speak.
Yes, Miss Lani, no, there are questions and I sent it to the Bokashi mentors and probably they can read it out and answer it live here on Zoom. And there's also one here from PA. Can you run us through now? Can you please walk us through the Bokashi method?
Run you through the book. Sige, Roy.
Page 1 natin. Sige, wait lang. Ay, wait. Di yan. Okay. Ako na dito. Okay, so for our Bokashi Pinoy method, meron lang po kaming at least five Bokashi steps or stages that we do, no? So first stage is in stage 1. We collect the bucket. We collect our food waste and add Bokashi ipa. So in our method, we use what you call this? We use for a while kung makita. Wait lang po. We use collection tabs before we put it in our Bokashi bin. So meron po kaming method na ganon para po ma-ensure na tama po yung paglalagay nyo ng bokashi pa. Then on stage 2, we close our bucket pag puno na and wait for 2 weeks. So minimum of 2 weeks for us to ferment the food waste. And after 2 weeks, stage 3 na po, i-bury na po natin yung ating bokashi. And after certain time, the fastest that we got record from now is 2 weeks also. So after 2 weeks, you can go to stage 4 and use your bokashified compost for your gardens. And stage 5, you consume the food that you eat. Then yung sobra po doon, yung tapon, balik nyo po sa stage 1. So paikot-ikot na lang po. Hindi na po tayo magtatapon on our food waste. Okay po?
Yes, thank you. Question, is the bin a regular timba or there should be a specialized timba?
We designed our buckets for household use na rin. So it's a 20-liter bucket or a 10-liter bucket. More so, mas gusto namin gamitin yung 20-liter because it's reused buckets. So meron siyang special function, dalawa po yun. Yung nasa ibabaw is butas-butas where you could collect your leachate. Kaya naman yung nasa babang bucket, magkapatong po yun. Yung nasa ilalim, it's a collection for your leachate. Leachate can be used. Dati pag sinabi mong leachate sa waste management, tapon na, hindi na pwedeng gamitin, i-treat mo na para maayos. But this time, yung leachate po namin, dahil po bokashified siya, you can use it, number 1, to your plants. Meron certain ratio po kaming ginagamit for you to use it as a liquid fertilizer to your plant. Or the best thing is you put itapon nyo po sa drain nyo. It will help you declog your drains if you have some yun.
One more pala, I would like to show you a video, guys, for you to see the whole process, no? And na-promise ko to kanina that I'll show this video. So this is actually the video made by one of the community leaders of Bokashi Pinoy. She's a proud certified Bokashi Pinoy practitioner and also one of the organizers from OSCI. So let me just share it with you. Para lang po mas ma-appreciate nyo yung process in a more practical way.
Magandang araw. Papakita ko
Ay, hindi
sa inyo ang
nakikita.
aking setup para sa Bokashi Composting
Nakikita ba, Roy?
Stage
Hindi.
1.
Hindi.
Hold on, sige. Entertain more questions muna.
Okay,
Let me
eto na lang.
pick it up.
May isa pang question po rito and I think this is very good. Is there a possibility that this advocacy be integrated in our educational curriculum, particularly in basic education? Since the
Yes
more
po.
okay, ayan, sinagot na ni Lani. Yes, we have. Meron po, personally ako po nung nag-start kami, I started with Ilocos Norte po noon. And I guess they're still continuing. But I hope mas ma-integrate pa po within Metro Manila kasi mas focus po kami ngayon sa Metro Manila kasi dito po yung waste problem na kailangan nating But yeah, you can integrate this in your educational curriculum and we will help you on that as well.
All right. So here's the video na from Miss Floy.
Magandang araw. Papakita ko sa inyo ang aking setup para sa Bokashi Composting Stage 1. Tara na sa aking kusina. So, ito ang aking ice cream tubs. So, naghanda ako ng 3 kasi usually, nilalagay, pag napuno na tong 3, saka ko palang nilalagay sa aking Bokashi bucket. Ang laman ng aking ice cream tubs ay may papel, merong konting bokashi ipa. Yan. Ito naman ang aking setup kapag napuno na ang mga ice tubs, dito ko nilalagay. Dito ko nililipat kapag puno na ice tubs. Yan. Malapit na siya mapuno. Kapag puno na yung aking ice bucket, binababa ko na siya dito sa aming garahe. Ayan, meron akong 2 punong balde. kapag after 2 weeks na ma-ferment ang aking bokashi, naakyat ko na siya at nilalagay na dito. Ayan na siya. So, 1 linggo na to. Sa Sunday, ay magiging na siyang compost. So, welcome sa aking garden na maliit. So, ito na yung kamatis challenge. So, ito yung compost. Bokashi compost. Kumpashi kung tinatawag. Yan. Tinaniman ko ng kamatis. So, ito ay 10 araw na. Yan yung kasama niya. Ito pa. So, pure kumpashi yan. Hinaluan ko lang ng carbonized rice powder. Iyan.
Ayan po, may tanong pa po ba? I hope na kahit papano, this video was able to give you an idea on what the Bokashi Pinoy method is.
There's a question if it is possible it could be done in the rural areas. I could not scan na yung the questions, please, whoever you are. Yes, it could be done, and please type where are your location, please, so that we can reach out for you. Ano ba yun? There was a question about that, if it is possible that it could be done in the rural areas.
Yes, I think so po. You can purchase our starter kits via Shopee and Lazada. And regardless where you are, we even have customers as far as Mindanao and Isabela. So, no excuse na po. Shopee can go anywhere, Lazada can go anywhere, Bokashi Pinoy can go anywhere. So yan po, ang ano lang po siguro is maybe the question is about the challenge sponsored by Coca-Cola Foundation. So right now po, it's only in Metro Manila, but we do have grand plans of doing this all over the Philippines. But for now, we do what we do muna in Metro Manila, and if we can perform well here, then I think yun nga, no, it's about gaining trust of our stakeholders, and maybe we can reach out to more people. And with partnership of NGOs and institutions like Ateneo, I think it's possible. If we can do this with Ateneo, itong mga ganitong webinars on a monthly basis, then I think it's possible.
This is quite important question and an interesting question. What makes Bokashi composting better than other methods of composting? Lani, take it away.
I actually would like to, I don't want to raise my own bangko. Maybe Miss Floy, would you like to share? Why do you think Bokashi is better or more at least applicable to you? Sorry on the spot ka.
Sige. I tried the traditional, like dried leaves paper, pero parang sobrang tagal po, 6 months, ganyan. Mainipin po ako. Tapos nag-try din po ako ng vermi composting. Kaso ang konti ng aking na-harvest na vermicast. So nakita ko nga na mabilis, 'di ba? Nakita niyo naman, no? After 2 weeks na ma-ferment yung food scraps. So maghintay ka uli ng 2 weeks para pwede mo nang magamit for planting and soil conditioning. Ayun, yun yung benefit ng Bokashi composting. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Meron lang ako nakita na spot ko lang. Meron po bang added mixture? Yes po. I think we've mentioned it several times, although hindi namin na introduce what it is all about. The Bokashi Ipa. The Bokashi Ipa, you have to add it to your food waste po because we need to ferment it. So basically, binuburo po namin or inaatsara ang food waste so that it's not attractive to pests because pests do not like atsarang food. They don't like fermented food. Cockroach do not like it, rats do not like it. Pangalawa, it helps to proliferate more of the beneficial microorganisms, which makes the decomposition faster. Kaya we need to add that Bokashi Ipa.
Miss Lani.
Po.
May i-add din po ako, may share din.
Sige
Yun sa
po.
benefits. Ang benefits po dun sa ating Bokashi composting, it's yung ating leftover cooked food. Sa traditional composting po, hindi natin siya pwedeng i-compost. So dito sa ating Bokashi Pinoy composting, especially dun po sa ating mga household na marami tayong leftover cooked food, yung Bokashi composting, pwede natin i-compost ang ating leftover cooked food. Yun lang po.
That's Mentor Bell po, one of the mentors of Bokashi Pinoy. Thank you, Mentor Bell.
Someone is asking, meron ba dito sa Negros? Yes, sir. Actually, we have one challenger from Negros also. He purchased his Bukasi set through Shopee or Lazada, I think so. And then he joined the 30-day Garbage to Garden Challenge. Taga Negros man ko, Noy.
How much po yung set? Actually, this is a PM. The basic starter kit po is 745 pesos to get started. 745 pesos, but every household need at least 2 buckets. If you are going to add leftover cooked food, you also need more bokashi ipa. So we suggest na dalawa na po yung bilhin yung balde. And get the GGC bundle too para po isahang delivery na lang.
From PA, can you please walk us through the Bokashi method? Yes, we can do that if you join the 30-day Garbage to Garden Challenge because it takes time and then we will have a daily mentoring program for you which you will learn from that and you will enjoy it.
Bokashi po is not from the Philippines. The technology is not from the Philippines po. It is from Japan. But we tried to apply or adapt it to the Filipino culture. That's the reason why we have Pinoy in our logo, because we tried to apply this to our culture and the way we eat and the way that we manage our food waste. So medyo sinabay lang po natin ng konti, kaya Bokashi Pinoy. So here, if you're interested on how much it costs, the basic kit po is 745. And then yung pong version 3, the one that you need for leftover cooked food is version 3. Ito pong 815. So ito pong buy a starter kit version 2 and get the starter kit and the 40-liter Bokashi Ipa for free. These are for those communities who are eligible for sponsorship by Coca-Cola Foundation. So, yan po ang pwede nilang makuha. But you can also buy this on your own. Marami naman pong individuals who are just buying this on their own from our resellers and also from Shopee and Lazada. Stop ko na po kasi para po akong online marketer. So, ano pa pong question
Hello, Miss
natin?
Lani.
Yes po.
And Miss Lani, we have a question here from Miss Ada Villena. So sabi niya, have the Bokashi Pinoy tried to influence the government in spreading the advocacy toward climate justice by way of building rising gardens even at the LGU level? Or do we have any political group that strongly pushes for this kind or related advocacy? Thank you daw po.
I think we are beginning to be heard. Alam niyo po kasi I spent a lot of years in Singapore. So when I came back here in the Philippines, I realized I do not have much of a network or clout. I don't have the political connections, but I can say that we are slowly being heard by the government unit. So dati only barangay captains or barangay kagawads would take interest on us. And now I hope that the Pasig City somehow can hear us, even our Quezon City government. I'm based in Quezon City. Sandigan Bayan have also invited us for a talk. So I guess may ripples of changes na. Sherwin Pereira, thank you po for reminding me. Hindi ko po ito masyadong binabanggit, but if people kind of reminds me about it, yun din po, actually one of the main reasons why we do what we do and why these 5 mentors have been volunteering for Bokashi Pinoy for the last 3 years for free or almost for free. Ngayon po hindi na free, pero for the last 3 years po free po talaga ang services nila is because we're helping landless farmers po in Nueva Ecija by giving them additional source of income by creating the Bokashi Ipa for us. So, isa po yan sa aming common bond Kaya po kami nagtagal ng ganito katagal na magkakasama, kaming 5. And now, we are joined by the community leaders sa aming munting advocacy is because, yun nga, nakakapag-create po tayo ng jobs. And we're hoping na as many communities begin to compost as organized groups, no? You can also start earning from the compost that you make. Yung tinatawag namin compashi. So one of our goals this year is to empower communities to be able to earn revenues out of the compost that they make. Or even from the produce, no, ng mga gardens nila. So
Miss Lani, time check.
Opo. Last
10
na lang
minutes.
Sige po.
Okay.
Thank you, Karen. May mga nakita na ako mga taga-LGU dito. So, if you can help us get connected and better heard in a platform where we can be more of an influence in the LGU, it'd be sincerely appreciated. We have a structured process naman, and we have our support system. The mentors are very willing to educate households, communities, even our local authorities, mga partners natin sa LGU, sa barangay, and even mga gated communities, no? We are very willing to partner with you and work with you and adjust accordingly.
Lani, last na lang siguro. Can anybody from our meeting group paki-add po yung links nila kasi isa lang ang sagot dito sa tanong nila. How they can join? Is it possible? And how
Roy, hindi ka marinig.
Ayun, sorry. Yan. So there's a single question, lots of question pero single answer dito, no. Paano daw makabili, paano kung magkano at saka how to join. So we will be sending the links through the chat
box.
and also to your emails para po doon nyo po ma-connect lahat. Okay? So yun lang po.
Ito pala, magandang tanong to from Sarah, Alemania. Is a 30-day challenge doable in a single household with 5 members and only 1 plastic bag of food waste? I worry with the bokashi that we won't be able to fill the bokashi bin for fermentation and with the ECQ. Actually, ma'am, when we started the 30-day challenge, talagang ang target namin are just households who might take a while before they can fill a bucket. That's why the challenge was designed knowing that maybe maka 1 tab lang kayo sa isang week, in 1 week, and be able to manage it na paunti-unti lang. As some of our advocates have mentioned, it became easier for them because they don't have to watch out for the basurero, for the garbage truck to come almost every 2 days or every 3 days just for them to throw away their food waste because they can keep their food waste for how long in the buckets itself na hindi po siya dinadaga. So it's possible po, no? Don't think that it's because we are aiming for communities this year, hindi na kayo pwede mag-participate as household. Pwede pa rin po. Yun lang po. And in order to participate for the community challenge po, there are certain requirements nga. And if you were invited by your certified community leaders, then you are in luck po. If not, maybe kayo po yung iniintay nilang community leader. Just join muna as an individual and become certified. We need more leaders po. This country, we have a lot of good followers. We are good workers. But I think we need a lot of good leaders. New brand of leadership po. People who are willing to get their hands dirty. Leaders who are willing to be hands-on. Willing na tanggalin yung hiya. Ako po talaga, I'm an introvert. But if you are like us, who likes hands-on work, likes to get your hands dirty, pero nahihiya, don't worry po, ganyan din po kami. Mahiyain din kami, believe it or not. But we will guide you along, sasamahan namin kayo, kami ang kakampi nyo. We are fellow earth keepers po.
Coming from Miss Dora, you've tried to speak in English as much as possible unless the site is only for Pinoys. However, yes, Miss Dora, if ever you join the 30-day garbage to garden challenge, we will put you in a group where it's exclusively in English language. We are very sorry if sometimes we drop by and speak Tagalog. That is the manners of the Filipinos. We are very sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Therefore,
In
our
fact,
apology.
with our current challenge this month, the one that's currently running, the April batch, there were 2 foreigners in the batch, actually. So we can manage to
Sunny.
speak 100% English. Don't worry. We just have to be
And
to
to
be
retain
informed.
others.
We just have to be informed.
Time check po
Sige po.
is 3:30.
3:30 na pala. Gusto nyo pa ba mag-picture taking? Ang dami nito. Maybe we return the platform back to our hosts. Mas masaya po, yes, Engineer Michael. Mas masaya kung buong barangay. Let's help each other. Make it happen for the whole barangay.
Hello.
Ay, sorry. Nakamute ba ako? Feedback form. Feedback form daw. So, for those who would like to get, ayan pala, sorry po. Ayan na pala si Miss Abby. Go ahead, ma'am. Back to you na po. So, for those who would like to get e-certificate, kailangan nyo pong sumagot. You need to answer the feedback form so that you'll get us in e-cert. But even if you don't need an e-cert, please respond to the feedback form. We will sincerely appreciate it. We consider feedback as a gift. All right, back to you, ma'am. Ma'am Abby. Thank you for this opportunity to share what we have to share today. And we're hoping to continue this partnership with the Ateneo OSCI. Thank you po.
Okay, so wala po si Abby. I think na-cut off siya. Nasa dinagat po siya ngayon. So, we would like to acknowledge, okay, yung mga sharings at binahagi na kaalaman kaalaman at karanasan, no, ng ating mga kaibigan mula sa Bukasi Pinoy. So, una muna, pasalamatan natin si Miss Abigail Marie T. Fabis. Okay? Ito, yung aming Certificate of Appreciation. So, palakpak naman kayo dyan, mga kasama. Meron dyan reaction, emoticon, okay? Meron dyan clap. So, kahit wala na siya dito, ipapaabot natin yung ating pasasalamat sa kanya. Next slide. At maraming salamat sa ating mga kasama sa Bukasi Pinoy, okay? Na pinamunuan ni Miss Lani D. Francisco, mentor idol. Okay. So, with that, okay, I'd like to again remind you to fill up the evaluation form. We need your feedback para po malaman namin kung paano namin improve yung flow. Kung gusto niyo i-replicate yung ganitong gawain, feel free to get in touch with any one of us, okay? From Bukasi Pinoy or from Ateneo. And then, Abby, are you back? Not yet. So, I think that's it. So, by the way, we are lucky that our office will be sponsoring at least 2 starter kits and 1 starter kit from AIS. So, iraraffle po namin to sa mga lahat ng sasagot ng feedback form. Kayo po ang may chance na mabibigyan ng starter kit. So again, sana wag niyong kalimutan na sagutan. At after that, we will send you after a week yung certificate of attendance. All right? Are there any other questions? It's 3:34. Thank you for staying. So I think that's it. So much. May question niya, mag-stay. Pwede niyo chat.